for coming to Phonology tonight. Really great to see such a big turnout, and Zane finally sitting down. So just a quick rundown. Bob's going to have a bit of a chat about Superhome, obviously. I'll have a bit of a talk about things that we're doing in Phonology. And then Lester is going to talk a little bit about insulation and some pretty interesting products that are coming to the market. Rochelle is going to have a chat about her incredible build, 10-star and everything else. I won't list them all. And then Suzanne's going to talk a bit about the Homestar version 4 that's just been released. So yeah, I'll leave it up to Bob.
Thank you. Hey, thanks very much for hosting the meeting tonight too. So it's a fabulous office with a fantastic view. I don't know how you get your work done here, and looking at all the toys you've got with VR and all that, that's just... The drone. I'm just sort of, yeah, I'm dribbling at the mouth. But yeah, and the drone to capture buildings. So that's amazing, but I'm just really disappointed that you're not using Macintosh computers with the name like Alan Macintosh. Anyway, thanks for coming everybody, and I've sort of done a few of these talks now around the country, and I've run out of things to talk about. So, probably a couple of meetings ago, I sort of had a show of hands who's been to these things before, and not many had, so I said, oh, that's great, I can just recycle my last presentation. Nobody will know. But seriously, I'm not going to talk too much because there's other people going to talk about some really interesting stuff. But I will give you a bit of news on what's happening with the Superhome movement and a bit of an update, and tell you a little bit about what we've done in other parts of the country and what we hope to replicate here in Auckland. So it's not rocket science. We all know why we're here and what we need to do. New Zealand homes, New Zealand building code is crap. And I was just listening to a thing online, a Radio New Zealand piece of a UK expert talking about energy efficiency, and he was relating to 30 years ago when they were comparing the UK to Europe and how embarrassed they were about the internal temperatures of their houses and buildings, and then he went on to compare to New Zealand, and New Zealand is about where they were 30 years ago. So it's sad, but it's also a big opportunity to catch up. And it's not just me saying this. I'm going to touch on some research that was done recently comparing rating systems and comparing building code standards around the world. Some good research that was done by Burnett, and I'll mention that. She compared all the rating systems and also the code standards, and we're probably about where some of the better countries, UK, Ireland, were probably 20 years ago. And we need double or 3 times the amount of insulation and what we're putting into homes. So we've really got left behind. But we already know that. So what is the Superhome movement? It's really simple. It's just about sharing ideas, breaking down the barriers of trade secrets, and just, we're no longer competitors, holding things close to our chest. Joining the dots. This is too important. We just got to get the information out there. The way I look at it personally is, I don't mind sharing all the information that on the last project that I did, because the next one's going to be better. Every project we learn something, and every project is better the next project. And we've got a serious health issue in New Zealand. It's not just about what's the power bill and can you afford to heat your house. Unfortunately, in New Zealand, a lot of people can't, and we've got a thing called fuel poverty, where people suffer. But anyway, on the bright side, we're sharing, we're innovating, we're connecting, collaborating, and we're actually doing real stuff. We're not just talking about it. So, being from Christchurch, there's been a real talk fest. There's been a lot of talk and not a lot of action. So, you know, after the Earthquakes Share an Idea campaign, there was 106,000 people put forward ideas about how to have a better city, and a lot of people, over half the people, called for an energy efficient green city. We haven't seen a lot of solar panels on the roofs. If you talk to brands, they'll tell you that 99% of houses are built to code. We're not doing this stuff. Even the big expensive houses, they're still not very good in terms of their thermal efficiency and their comfort. They just turn the heat up because they can afford to and have a bigger power bill. So through Superhome movement, what we've really done is we've found that as a group, we have a much louder voice, and we can engage with local authorities. Christchurch City Council down in Christchurch have really been supportive, and they couldn't support an individual company like Buildology or Burnett Architecture or anyone, you know, a building company or a product company, but they can support the Superhome movement, and they can fund our events and promote our events, which is really good. So we're in this unique position of being able to do whatever the hell we like, and we don't have to be politically correct, and we don't have to worry about stepping on people's toes. So there's no sort of PC gone mad, which I think, you know, sometimes people like brands get caught in this. We can tell you about this idea, but we can't tell you what the product, what the company name is. And I just think that's downright unhelpful. So basically, breaking down the barriers, getting the ideas out there, and how to have a better home, a super home. So, and it's a movement, so we're doing real stuff from the ground up, and we're walking the talk, or walking the walk. So I'm going to give you an overview of a few of the things we've done. So, you know, it all started at Christchurch City Council a couple of years ago, and we had a meeting about the 10-star home, and that home created a bit of a furore, and it was on national TV 3 or 4 times, and we used that attention to launch the Superhome movement. So just quickly, yeah, so that's been published in a book, and just while I'm Skyping, you know you've made it when you see a poster like this on the back of the toilet door in Westfield Mall. So this was, my wife took this photo and texted this to me. I think it was supposed to go on the back of a bus, but it was on the back of the toilet door. And this is advertising the Superhome section at the Home Idea Centre in Christchurch. So we've got a whole display there with companies. So probably the most successful event, our sort of flagship event, has been the Exemplar Homes Tour. So this will be national next year. So this was in the month of May, and as you can see there, you can read that writing. It was Saturday, Sunday, 11 till 4 for a whole month, and there was 10 homes. People could visit the homes and feel the warmth and talk to the designers and builders and product people, and ask them questions about how they achieved what they did. So the ones with underfloor heating were really popular. So in a cold month, it was really effective, because you can't get that by looking at something on a website or looking at some drawings. Or even looking at a photo. I think a photo describes probably 10, maybe 5% of what a building is about. So the tours was amazing, and 3,000 people visited the homes during those 4 weekends. And Christchurch City Council did a survey, and it was phenomenal, the survey, because that's the highest satisfaction rate of any event Christchurch City Council has been involved in. 98% of people said they'd go again or recommend it to family and friends. What we did find is we scored well on everything, except for we definitely need a better website. So basically, until now we've been pretty much unfunded or funded by my credit card, and the time that I'm allowed to not be at work designing buildings. But we're changing, so we're just starting to get our first major sponsors. NK Windows is our first primary partner, and they've been really helpful, and they've had some really huge gains and with their business by being part of it. So we've now got a national manager and a part-time manager in Wellington, so maybe I can get back to my day job. But we've still got an army of volunteers as well. So with the tours, we found that 51% of people surveyed, Christchurch City Council did this survey, 51% of people visited 5 or more homes. And I was a little bit surprised about that because I thought they'd go one to the other. I won't go into some of the other details. So we're going to do the tours nationally, and I had a meeting with New Zealand Green Building Council today, and they've kindly offered to assist in rating all of the homes. So all of the homes will have a home star rating. And that'll be great, so people will be able to rock up and say, what home star rating is this home? And then feel how warm it is, and ask, what's the power bill as well. It was a busy month in May. We launched the Superhome movement in Queenstown, and 100 people came along to that. And I quickly realised that a 45-minute talk is not long enough to tell people everything they need to know about how to create a superhome. And simultaneously, Jonathan from Wanaka had the same idea, and he's decided he's organising a 2-day symposium or workshop on how to create a superhome. So this is what I want in Auckland. I want someone to, who's going to be the Bob in Auckland? Who's going to pick up the ball and run with it? Because this is really about what you guys want and what you want to do. So there's no point in becoming a participant. It's $500 to be a participant in the Superhome movement, or 1,000 if you're a national company. But don't bother if you're not going to participate. So we've called it a participant, not member, for a reason. So there's no point in just sitting back. If you get involved, you'll benefit. And you know, that's just life, that's how things go. So I'll touch on a couple of other initiatives. So there's a number of things that are happening with the Superhome movement. This is a cool thing. So I've talked about this for ages, probably a couple of years, and people have probably got sick of hearing me talk about it. So I'm actually doing it now. So what we want to do with Superhome movement is just lead by example and do stuff. So this is I'm calling this a dashboard, an affordability dashboard, and that is a section through the 10-star home in Christchurch. So what we want to do is give people all the information about all the good things they need to do, and then they can see where that sits on the 10-star scale, and then they can see the performance, what the monthly power bill is, what the cost to build it is, and then compare that to a code minimum home, and see where they are comfortable with that sitting. And then there's several other facets to this. So the other thing is there'll be a mortgage calculator. So if you do get to say an 8, 9 or 10 and do a really good job but had no power bill, what would happen if you took what you'd normally spend monthly on your power and put it onto your mortgage? It has a profound effect. And then another thing, I spoke to a property valuer today, and I had a question from someone in Queenstown. What was the upside of the home star-rated homes that you've done in the past? So he told me it's 29%. So I've sold. There was actually 2 10-star homes. I sold one and I kept one as my office. The single-story house was valued at $535,000. It sold for $620,000, and the property valuer told me it would be a good 10 to 15% less if it wasn't a 10-star home. So that would be $481,000 if it was 10% less. So I was conservative. I took the 10% less. There is no history of sales in New Zealand, but what we see from overseas, it's a 10 to 20% upside in doing a better home to start with, and then you're going to have less running costs. You're going to have a healthy, comfortable, delightful place to live. So this here is a huge mission to create this. So I've put together a very esteemed team of experts to help collaborate on this tool, and we've applied for some research funding through National Science Challenge. But even if that doesn't get picked up by then, we will fund it through industry or other channels. And this will be a real game changer for the New Zealand building industry. This will transform the way people think about what they build. So the first touch point for this is banks and mortgage brokers. The first thing people do when they're thinking about building a house, how much money can I borrow? If the bank can tell them, have you had a look at the dashboard? Because if you do a high-rated home, we can give you more money and it won't cost you any more. The payments won't cost you any more because you can service the extra from the savings in your power bill. So that is a product overseas, an e-loan or eco-loan. In the States they call it a green mortgage. It doesn't exist here because nobody's doing these sort of homes. So that's the way of the future. That'll be in about 10 years' time. This is probably a 1 to 2 year project to create this. I see it being used by homeowners who just want to decide what sort of home to build or get a superior home, by builders, by local councils, eco-design advisors, by government agencies, across the board, banks. So, cool. The last news is Thriving in the Future. This is an ANZ conference which is coming up in Wellington. I promised to give them a plug because they put our events on their website. So I'm part of a panel discussion there about small, resourceful, smarter living, challenging the space we live in. And I'm really, really pleased that they've said young guns because they obviously don't know how old I am. So, is there anyone? There's a few ANZ people here. Yeah. Cool. So, Jerome Partington is here from Gasmax, and yeah, just recently he took a creating living buildings course in Christchurch in the beautiful new architecture engineering building. Kahukura, yeah. So amazing. It made me wish that I was 18 and I was a student again, and seeing all the 3D printing and laser cut models that they're making. But Living Building Challenge is really the next level. It's beyond sustainability. So it's talking about rejuvenation, regeneration, and Jerome describes sustainability as dying slowly, causing the least possible harm. So things like rating tools. It's how to reduce your impact on the planet. But in actual fact, we've been having a really, really bad impact for decades, and we need to do better. We need to, with what we build, we need to add rather than take away. So that's interesting. And then just seeing the kind of attributes and the categories that This pointer doesn't work. Yeah, or maybe it doesn't work on the TV. Yeah, it just doesn't work on the TV. So, yeah, anyway, you know, compared to the other rating tools, Passive House really about energy, air tightness. Homestar is a bit more all-encompassing. But then Living Building Challenge goes beyond that and talks about biophilic environments. Who knows what that is? So being connected to nature, you know, having a lovely view of nature, or I mean, having nature inside your building. Like, I think you're cheating though, because you're probably plastic. Oh, but it's still biophilic. Yeah, still do that. Yeah. Anyway, and just some amazing philosophies and ideas: equity, beauty and spirit, inspiration, education. So basically, some of this stuff is in line with the Superhome movement. You know, Superhome movement's all about awareness and education and sharing information. And we're just seeing that happen really amazingly in Christchurch. So, you know, on Friday nights, we have 20 builders standing around talking, and there's a buzz, sharing ideas, and you know, there's a pool table in the 10-star home, but last Friday night there was no pool happening, everybody was just talking, and it was bizarre. Yeah, so we look at each other as colleagues rather than competitors, because we're operating in this niche where it's kind of the top 3%, and the rest of the world is catching up. So really inspirational stuff. So how to get involved? Get involved. Become a participant if you're how many builders are here? Great. So I was hoping there's going to be some builders here, because in Auckland we've got a bunch of architects and designers, not many builders. Christchurch it's the opposite. We've probably got about 30 builders. We've got about a dozen architects and designers. So I want to know, what are you building at the moment that's a super home? I know you guys are building some super homes at the moment, and what's going to be available next May. It doesn't have to be completely finished, and in actual fact it's probably better if it isn't completely finished, because people will be able to see what's going on. If you've got a house next May for the tour, just let me know later, because we need to be lining up the tour now, and yeah, it's going to be bigger and better each year. We've done it 2 years in a row. Each year we learn and we do something that's even better than the last year. So this year we did a really good job of engaging and educating schooling up the students that were helping us out. So they knew all about the houses, and they learned a lot, and they did a great job of showing people around. So, and Christchurch City Council 2 years in a row have put in some funds to help advertise and organise the tours. So we'll be talking to Auckland City Council, and we'll be talking to Rochelle already is locking horns with Auckland City Council. That's another story. And hopefully the educational institutions here. And yeah, so who wants to help with the tour? Come on. Yeah, it was amazing. And you know, in Christchurch, 3,000 people. Over 50% of people were either building or thinking about building. 1,500 people. How many houses are built in Christchurch? Probably about 3,000, maybe more. Nobody really knows. But you know, that's half the people that are building. And what we've found is they're asking intelligent questions. They're not asking how much a square metre, mate. What's your square metre rate? They're asking, what's your power bill? And how airtight is this house? And some intelligent questions. Do you need a ventilation system? So that's really encouraging. Facebook is, in lieu of a proper sort of decent website, Facebook is our channel. And so a lot of information goes through there, but we are working on a better website. So like us on Facebook, drop me an email if you want to become involved, and we'll tell you more about it, and what to do, how to, but you might have ideas of your own. So I'm going to leave it at that because I haven't got time. Oh no, I'm just going to do this. So, Frank Gehry, renowned American architect, a visionary. He later apologised for this, so he was grumpy, he had a long flight, and he was in a press conference, and some journalist said to him, when are you going to stop designing these look at me shop buildings and do something real? And but through my involvement on an advisory group with brands, I know that probably 98% of buildings today are built to code.
Which is pretty shit.
Which is pretty shit compared to a lot of other parts of the planet. So Frank Gehry says things like, we need to, whatever we design, we need to make a difference. And, you know, we need to, there's constraints. The budget is obviously a constraint, but I think it's a myth that it's too expensive to do a better quality home. A lot of the things that we talk about through Superhome movement are actually cheaper and provide better performance. So it's a cop-out to say it's too expensive to do better than code, and it's actually not, because you need to look at the ongoing cost. Housing affordability isn't how cheap can we build houses. We don't want to be harnessing the next generation, our children and their children, to a lifetime of massive power bills. That's not good enough. Because what we build today, what we design today, we're predicting what's going to happen in the future. And there's a lot of uncertainty in the future. So we just need to prepare for that. And Frank Gehry, he talks about the constraints. You know, obviously we found in Christchurch one of the constraints was gravity, which is pretty harsh. When a whole bunch of stuff fell down, 90% of the city. That's about as unsustainable as it gets. But he talks about doing something for humanity. So we all need to do something for humanity. And I think it's really important because what we do building super homes, that's going to improve people's lives. And that is not overstating it, it is a fact. We have serious health issues, poverty issues, and we can remedy that, so we should. Why wouldn't you? Now, what we're going to be doing with the Superhome movement, we've been really polite, and we've been pointing out the aspirational goals and targets and standards, but we're going to take a carrot and stick approach from now on, because we need to get a bit brutal. And what did Bill English say about housing? We might need to get a bit ugly, but I don't think he's talking about what I'm talking about. So these are brand new Housing New Zealand houses, and I'm not picking on Housing New Zealand, it's just they're across the road from the 10-star homes and they were built at the same time. Housing New Zealand do some good things, but this isn't one of them. So there's plywood on that window. That faces south. There's almost full height glass on a lot of the south elevation. There's curtains tied in a knot, probably because they're mouldy. There's bins there by the front door. That was a good day, because sometimes there's rubbish in the front yard. And these were opened by the then Prime Minister, John Key, and he said, he talked them up and said, this is the way forward, this is what we need for the rebuild. The government has no idea. They shouldn't own houses, they don't know how to do it. They shouldn't build houses, they don't know how to do it. But, and they're spending our money producing this crap. They're too cold, they've got condensation, mold. We need to stop that. So the building code describes the worst possible house that you're legally allowed to build in this country. That's enough of that. So this is the figures. So Christchurch City Council, Auckland City Council tried to implement 6-star as a minimum standard. It costs 2% more. Your power bill will be half. Got kicked out. Government said, no, you can't do that. Building code is where it's at. Okay. Super homes need to be beautiful, as well as high performance. I'm going to hand over to Alan. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bob.
Jesse.
Computer going to sleep.
Can't you read that?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm probably going to have to shorten my talk a little bit. It sounds like everything's getting covered in a lot more detail. I was doing a little bit more of a broad outline of why we were joining the super home movement, which Bob's outlined. I guess first of all, I'd just like to thank Mammoth for helping support us tonight. We use all Mammoth products because they're good, and then the fact that they come and help us out on evenings like this is great. And Export Gold, they're doing a recycle thing, so the bags of concrete over there are actually from their recycled glass machine. So anything to do with beer and recycling is good for the environment and us. So thanks to those guys. The reason we got involved with, first of all, Homestar and the super home movement, we always tried to build quality homes, and it's really hard for clients to see the difference between what's in the walls and things like that, whereas if you give it a simple score, it's really obvious. So as soon as Homestar, first time I heard about it, it was, yeah, we've got to be involved with that. I've done a lot of development in my time, and it's really frustrating to do, what we consider a high quality, and then the agents don't sell it as high quality. They miss all the important little details that makes a home much better. And then super home is just, like Bob says, it's all about informing people, letting them know what's going on and what they can do. So that was why we got involved. So this is pretty much our flagship project. This is Zane's house. So about the time I was doing my Homestar Assessor course, I had to rate a home as part of the getting your license. So Zane had just brought this, so I thought, oh well, everyone else is doing new houses. That seems a bit easy. So we'll go for the renovation sort of area. So we rated it, and it came in at 2. How is it? 1960s?
67.
Yeah. Moved in. He was telling me how sick the kids were getting. Just really, really bad home. So as we went along, I think we first sort of thought about getting it to a 7 would be good. And then the sort of momentum got going, and then by the time we went into building consent, we had a 9-star design rating, which is I think this is the first in New Zealand for a renovation. It's a pretty extensive renovation. We've just put in our final build rating, and we're hoping to get it to a 10-star. There's still a little bit more work to do. I'll talk a little bit later about things that got changed, and things that we're having issues with. I mean, it's not all roses. There are difficulties in doing this. So the super home movement is, a super home is 6-star rating, but I think Bob's actually thinking of putting that up to like a 7, just to make it a bit more a challenge and have a really good name around the super home. So again, someone's going to talk about the new release of the version 4, which is...
No, you can talk about it. We don't have any slides this evening.
Okay, so I'll talk about it quickly. So the new version's actually got a little tick list that you go down, and if you tick all the boxes in this sort of area, actually I've just seen version 7, the new version for the 7-star home rating, and it does give you a little bit of movement. You basically have a tick list of everything that you need in your home and you get a 7-star rating, rather than going through, it's quite an intense rating system to get it through the old way, and the new way is a lot simpler. So I mean, every year it's getting easier and easier to achieve these higher level homes, so there's no excuse really why more people shouldn't be doing it. I mean, 3.6 in a roof. I mean, 2 layers. Justin, 3.6 in a roof, how did you do that? 2 layers of insulation, you know, it's not rocket science. And I mean, the floor slabs, and probably the biggest issue is the windows. But I was actually talking to a builder today who said PVC is actually coming right down in price and getting comparable to aluminium, which is a much better thermal insulator than the old aluminium. I mean, that rating there would be, if you're doing aluminium, thermally broken, low E glass, you know, still a minimum standard. So for new builds, like I say, there's companies out there that are doing some pretty great stuff. I mean, Maxi Raft, you know, some of their floor slabs are coming up to R.4.5, is that right? Yeah. And in Auckland, you just ring the slab company and they come and put your slab down. It's not a hell of a lot more expensive, but the performance is huge. Likewise with Mammoth, they're doing, and I'm not saying this just because, you know, Mammoth helped out tonight. This company is doing some great stuff. R.2.2 on a built rating on a wall, on a 90mm wall. I mean, that fits into the Homestar 7 rating. Yeah.